Welcome back to the MVP podcast, people. The People's Show, where we talk about the most valuable players in the world of sports. My name is B-Man, and I am here to talk NBA basketball. You know already that I love to talk NBA, and the trade deadline has just passed. There have been a plethora of moves, and I do not have the time to cover all of them, but I'm going to cover some of them. Let me put it out there that I will not cover trades that didn't happen. So the Kyle Lowry situation, we might mention in another pod. Maybe we might mention it later on in the season if it turns out that the Kyle Lowry trade was really the one that should have happened. But I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about that at all. I'm just going to focus on the trades that happened, in particularly at least the trades that I thought were big. I'm not going to focus so much on some of the smaller trades. Like, I'm not really going to talk about DeLon Wright for Corey Joseph. Although both players are really good and both players have a very distinct role that they can fill, it wasn't one of the bigger deals of the day. So I'm going to ignore that. And before I start, I just wanted to say, of all the trades that have happened and all the madness that happened on that day, I generally do not think that any of those trades really moved the needle drastically. One thing I said in the beginning of the season, when we first saw all these teams play basketball, is that there were a lot of contenders that were missing big pieces. Like, they needed a change. And although I do say big pieces, I'm not talking about like a superstar that they were away from, but they needed another player on the roster to kind of fill it out. They had a need. The Milwaukee Bucks, the LA Clippers, the Brooklyn Nets, Boston Celtics, Boston Trailblazers, Dallas Mavericks. Like, every team coming off of last season had lost so much coming into this season that we really should have expected this year, at least this trade deadline, to have been a lot bigger. But I personally don't think that there were many, if any at all, that had changed the landscape entirely. Okay? So now let's get into it then. So the first one that really caught me off guard, this was my trade of the day, which was Nikolai Vucevic. So the Orlando Magic traded him alongside Al-Farouq Aminu, and they got in return Wendell Carter Jr., Otto Porter Jr., and they've got 2 first-round picks to go with it. What you've gotten is a absolutely outstanding player, an all-star player, not just any all-star player, an all-star player that was in a small market team and managed to play well enough to catch the eye of the media and of the fans. Now, I don't think you guys realize just how hard it is to make a name for yourself when you're playing for a small market team. That's why the likes of Damian Lillard are such a big deal to me. But Nikolai Vucevic also falls under that same category, which is he has overcome a lot of odds to be recognized for the player that he is. And I think he'll be able to translate that over to the Chicago Bulls for the most part. Now, I'm a little bit upset with Orlando for having made this trade in the first place. Now, those 2 first-round picks, I'm going to talk about them a little bit later, right? But those 2 first-round picks are worth it, 100%. The contract situation, and I've heard a lot of people talking about it where they're saying like, oh, he's got this year left and 2 more years. They shouldn't have really traded him. And I get that. But teams also realize that if they don't trade him by that second year, that they lose all leverage. Now, having said that, they really could have waited on this trade. It's kind of like Bradley Beal. They didn't need to make that trade. I feel like they could have gotten something a lot better had they have waited. Now, maybe they looked at it and thought, oh, well, everyone is scrambling right now. Everyone is trying to become better. The entire landscape of the NBA has changed with the injuries of LeBron James and Anthony Davis. So perhaps this is the best that they were going to get, and they capitalized on that. Maybe that was the reason. Maybe all these teams looked at the Lakers and thought, well, do you know what? We are going to take a chance here. And maybe they capitalized on that. Maybe. But Vucevic is so good that I believe that they would have had a deal for him regardless. He was an all-star this year. He makes the playoffs every single year. Albeit in the East, I get that. But they usually make the playoffs every year. And for those of you that are saying like this year they're terrible, there have been injuries involved. Now, I know Markelle Fultz was out for ages, and Jonathan Isaac has been gone for so long, and even Aaron Gordon was dealing with like a lot of injuries throughout the season. He was out for an extended amount of time anyway. what they were doing this season, I didn't count it. They barely had a full roster. Barely. I'm sure they had like 7 players out at some point. So you can't really judge Vucevic on what's been happening this year, right? But even then, he's still been really good. And I'm really disappointed they let him go the way that they did. And even like, I watched the media, not the media, sorry, but his interview with the Chicago, you know, when he first signed with Chicago, and you know, they do the whole press conference thing, and he cried when they asked him, when the guy from Athletic, and I'm really sorry, I forgot your name, that is so poor of me, right? But he asked him, like, how do you feel? Like, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but it was like, you're at a new team, but how do you feel about leaving Orlando? And he cried. Like, there's a play that really cared. That's a play that you really could have built around. You did not have to trade him. He could have been a piece that could have taken you to the next step. Maybe being able to draft Cade Cunningham, and then you never know, they might work out. But the reality of the matter is that even with Vucevic on your team, you're not going to be the worst team in the NBA. So perhaps they decided that Cade Cunningham was the guy that they wanted to go for, and Vucevic was an obstacle because he was just that good. See, there's so many ways that you can look at this trade. There could be a million reasons. Maybe all of those reasons combined are the reasons why they made the trade, or maybe none of those were the reasons in the first place. But even if, regardless of how I stack it, honestly, I think I would have kept Vucevic for at least another year and tried to trade him at the next deadline and really try and set it up for something better. But it has happened now. Now, how does this affect Orlando? So Orlando have kind of like fire-sealed everyone. Nearly everyone except for Terrence Ross, who dropped the best tweet. I'm gonna stick it in right now. This is the best tweet ever, right? But they've kept Terrence Ross and took on Wendell Carter Jr., they've got Mo Bamba, they've got Markelle Fultz, they've got Cole Anthony, so they've got youngsters. But where are these youngsters meant to take you? I heard that, right, so many times, like, well, what do you have left? But that is what they have now. That can be a foundation. This is similar to what the Toronto Raptors did. Before that Kawhi Leonard, they had a foundation. They just needed to add something to it. They just need to develop this foundation. And if they can develop this foundation and strike really lucky in the draft, they could come up very, very quickly. But will it work out? Will Steve Clifford try and win as many games as possible? I really think I do. The guy's always out there trying to win. His record always speaks for himself. Regardless of how terrible his team is, he's always out there trying to win. So is he going to allow these youngsters to develop? We've already seen Wendell Carter Jr., who hasn't developed at all with the Chicago Bulls. We've seen Mo Bamba not having developed at all with the Orlando Magic. None of these guys are being given chances, and their confidence has been shot. There's absolutely no other way of looking at that. Their confidence has shot. So how do you then create that foundation with a coach that is really pushing for wins all the time? I don't know. I don't know what Orlando's trying to do here, guys. I really don't know what Orlando's trying to do here. Even Markelle Fultz, was on the JJ Redick podcast like a few months ago, talking about how amazing Vucevic is. I just don't know why it had to happen the way that it did. Okay, so let's look at this from Chicago's perspective. Now, Zach Levine is going to be happy. Zach Levine is going to be extremely, extremely happy with this trade, because now he has a forward that he can play the pick and roll with a lot easier, someone with a lot more experience, someone that's been in the league a lot longer. Now they've actually got some actual proper veteran presence in that locker room. That's nice. So the fact that the two of them can play off of each other raises their ceiling a little bit. But does it raise their floor with it? And I don't think it does. And I think the reason why it doesn't raise their floor is because I don't think they're better defensively. I don't think they're that much better defensively. Now, I give Zach Levine a lot of credit for what he's done this year. Has become an all-star, has taken over teams. He's been the leader for quite some time now. He's the go-to guy. He has improved on defense. He's improved his playmaking. So I like to see Vucevic and Zach Levine together. But that's on offense. On defense, I just don't know how that's going to look. I really don't know how that's going to look. can this team as they are constructed right now, I think this is the big question, right? Chicago Bulls made that trade because they wanted to be better, meaning they're trying to aim for something. Trading for Vucevic is not a trade for the future. That is not a trade for the future. That's a trade for now, unless they had it in their minds all along that he was available and that they knew that he had more value, that they could have taken him, knowing that if it doesn't work out, they can trade him next year's trade deadline. And if that was the plan, smarticles, right? If that was the plan, smarticles. However, as it stands now, we're just going to assume that they traded him because they wanted to keep him. And I just don't know if he moves the needle enough for them. I really don't. And I feel like I've spent entirely way too long on Nikolai Vucevic. So let me move on to the next trade that the Orlando Magic made. And that's the trade for, they traded Aaron Gordon to Denver. And what they got in return was Gary Harris, RJ Hampton, and a first round pick. Now, Aaron Gordon has been put in trade rumors pretty much just as long as Kevin Love has. There's certain players that have got like a skill set that for some reason the media believes everyone needs. So they keep getting thrown into these trades because of the fact that they are this like stocky like hybrid forward guard that can maybe like do multiple things, can guard multiple players. And again, just like the Vucevic thing, how much better is Denver now with Aaron Gordon? I get it. He can defend multiple positions. He's not an outrageously good defender, guys. He's not. But he's a competent defender. Like, even throughout this season, he has guarded some of the best players, some of the premier wings and premier guards. He's guarded them. So he does make their defense better. Albeit maybe slightly. How do you fit all four of them together? Now, there's going to be less touches for Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. because you know Jokic is going to get the same amount of touches. Will Aaron Gordon be able to embrace the culture that they have there, embrace the system, the plays, the off-the-ball cutting that you need to do when you're playing Jokic? It's one of the things that Michael Porter Jr. was really struggling with to begin with, which is, how do I play off of Nikolai Jokic? And there's been so many times where Nikolai Jokic was visibly getting frustrated because Michael Porter Jr. wasn't making the correct reads at the correct times. So I don't think they really took a step forward. I don't think they became better than anyone. With all the trades that have been made and all the acquisitions and what is going to happen during the buyout market, I don't think they leaped over anyone. I don't think they are better than Utah now. I don't think they are better than the Lakers now. I don't even think that they are better than the Clippers now. Are they better than the Phoenix Suns? I really don't know what the Phoenix Suns are all about. I really don't. I just know that they play brilliant basketball. I've got a brilliant setup, brilliant coach, and it's working. I just don't know what the hell is up with that team. I don't know how to judge that. I know what Denver can do, so I will put Denver above them, but I don't know if they've surpassed them. And if they haven't surpassed them, was this trade worth it? Was this a trade that was like a panic trade? If we don't do something now, we definitely won't make anything. Let's make a trade and then hope it takes us somewhere. I don't know if that is how it worked out. Now, Orlando got Gary Harris in return. They've got RJ Hampton in return and got a first round pick. So let's leave the first round pick out. That's really nice to have. People are stockpiling all these first round picks because, they will always have value. But it's the Gary Harris acquisition that I don't know how I feel about. Now, I've gone through a range of emotions when it comes down to Gary Harris. I've been really happy with him in time, impressed, just shocked at what he's been able to achieve. And then I've just looked at him at other times and thought you really need to take some minutes away from him. And this is while you're watching the basketball game in the moment, right? Do you think he might be better with a little bit more freedom? Where he can kind of run an offense a few times and he doesn't have to play off of anyone. I think that just might help his development a little bit. He's 26 years old, so he should be coming into his prime right around now. If you were going to get anything in return from the Denver Nuggets, you would ask for Gary Harris, you would ask for RJ Hampton, and you would have asked for Bol Bol. No one else would have been available. Michael Porter Jr. would have never been available. But those three were, you would want at least two of them in order to see if you can get more out of them. Okay then, so let's move on to the Victor Oladipo trade. Victor's been wanting to go to Miami for the longest. So first of all, congratulations, man. I'm really happy for you. It's been that long. He's been saying that he wants to go to Miami. He even, during the off season, he spends his time training in Miami full time. So you know he is excited. Now, Victor Oladipo was a all defense, all NBA type player before he got injured. And that was with the Indiana Pacers, by the way. So he always had that alpha dog mentality in him, because he always, even when he got picked by Orlando, even when he got traded to play with Russell Westbrook at OKC, like you could always see, like he always had that dog in him. Like he wanted to be the best player. Now he became that best player in the Indiana Pacers, and it seems like he's held on to that alpha dog mentality even beyond the injury. Now, how is that problematic? Is because the Miami Heat already has an alpha dog in Jimmy Butler. And we know what happens when you rub Jimmy Butler the wrong way. He will throw everything into chaos. Happened with the Chicago Bulls. Happened with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Didn't happen with the 76ers because it worked out the way that he wanted it to. It worked out the way that I wanted it to. And it hasn't happened with Miami Heat. Again, it worked out the way that he wanted it to. This team is working hard. His coaches had high expectations. The culture around both the 76ers and the Miami Heat were that high that it kept him happy. So throw Victor Oladipo in the mix. Is he going to accept a role where he is the second or third guy on this team? I don't know. I really don't know. Will his love for Miami lead to him at least making a few sacrifices in order to achieve the greater good, which is winning a ring and winning a title? I personally believe that he can. Now, he is averaging roughly around 20 points a game. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't really checked this up, but he's averaging 20 plus points a game. Not really as good defensively, but does he need to be as good defensively if he's playing for a Miami Heat team? I don't think he does, but he still just needs to be good. I like what the Miami Heat have done here. I like the type of plays that they've traded for, that they've signed. Heat culture cannot exist if you do not have players that all fit, that all believe in a common goal and believe in the method that's been put in front of them. And I believe Victor Oladipo will slot into that. I think Victor Oladipo will look at Jimmy Butler, will look at Tyler Hero, will look at Duncan Robinson, will look at everyone else and think, do you know what? There's absolutely no point in me trying to play any other way than the way that they are playing, because it works. They've been to the finals now. They've shocked everyone. Look at all the signings they've made. Look at the trades they've made. These guys are serious. They really want to win a ring. Guys, please, if you liked the video, leave a like on the video, subscribe. You've got nothing to lose, man. And you might just get some good content in the process. Thank you for listening and watching, and we'll be back again soon. So, peace.